Right, so good morning. Today we have to start with the introduction of geography. Okay, so geography is very important subject, we can say, as far as UPSC is concerned. And we know that this subject you will find in which of the GS papers? You have 4 general studies papers, okay, GS 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so geography has a very important, you can say, part in, first of all, GS1 as such. Okay, roughly we can say 40% of GS1 is geography. You have 3 subjects here: history, geography and Indian society. So if you look at the previous year questions and all that, 40% around, okay, is the weightage of geography. Similarly, it also has interlinked with the other paper, that is general studies 3, okay, or GS3 as such. In GS3, what do you have? Environment, okay, environment biodiversity directly linked with geography. Apart from that, also what do we have? Disaster management, okay, so disaster management and environment and biodiversity, and that is what we can say. Clear? So that's the significance. Now first of all, the question comes that what is geography? Okay, if you look at the subject itself, right? So in simple term, how do you explain what is geography? Uh, it is made up of 2 words, okay. Geo means earth, and then we have graphy, okay. Graphias means description. So what we can say, in simplest term, geography can be considered as description of the earth. And this was, first of all, this particular definition, this particular explanation was given by a Greek scholar called as Eratosthenes. Yeah, so that's the point we can write here as well. The first definition, okay, or simple definition of geography was given by Eratosthenes, okay, who described as a description of earth. A description of earth. Now later on, this is basically we talk about description of earth. When you talk about earth we can say is divided into multiple regions. The first part of earth is something that we can call as which part? Lithosphere. Okay, so what is lithosphere? If you look at the earth, what are the part on the earth? We have the land part. Land part is on which we are living, right? That is what we call as lithosphere. Okay, why lithosphere? Again, everything is you can break. So litho means rock. Okay, so that part of earth sphere which is made up of solid rock as such. Okay, that is what we call as lithosphere. So that is the first part. Second part we have is what else? Largest part on the earth, that is covered under water. Okay. How much percentage of earth's area is under ocean? If you look at the entire earth, 70% of earth's surface is covered under water, okay, under ocean as such. So the largest part on the earth, that is what we call as hydro, again referring to the water. Yeah, so that part of sphere which is covered under water. So lithosphere, then we have hydrosphere, and then next we have is atmosphere, third and the most important one, okay, without which life cannot survive. Right, so we have atmosphere. So lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere. Understood? Clear up to here? Now each of these regions we have to study in detail as far as geography is concerned, because how we are describing geography as description of the entire earth as such, and earth is made up of lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere. So each of these regions we have to study in detail, and collectively the study of all these three, lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, is around 60% of your syllabus, we can say. Remaining is what? Geography of India, okay, and then we have economics of human geography. We'll come to that. Now the study of these three parts collectively, we can write like this. First of all, what is the study of lithosphere called as? So we can say it is referred as geomorphology. Yeah, that is the first point. The study of lithosphere, that is the solid part of Earth, is referred as geomorphology. Geomorphology. Right. Now, what is geomorphology? Again, if you divide it, geo means what? You have earth. Okay. Morpho means forms, right? Various forms. So we'll look at that. And logy come from logos. Logos refer to study. Okay, study of, a study about. That means we can say, what is geomorphology? In simplest way, it is a study of forms on what? On the earth as such. Okay, a study of various forms on the earth. That is how we can define geomorphology. Okay, the study of various forms on the earth. And talk about various form again, we are studying what part here? Lithosphere. That means we are concerned about the part that is located where? Above the land surface as such. So if I ask you, on the land surface of earth, what are the different type of features you see? Different areas or region that you see on the earth? Mountains. Okay. What else? Plains. Okay. Plateaus. Okay. You have desert like landscape, right? What else? You have polar areas and all that. So all of these basically represent what? Different forms of the earth. So understanding about them, okay, looking about them, investigating about them is the subject matter of geomorphology. And we can understand this by taking an example. Like we have discussed, example of a form is what? Mountains. Okay, mountains are one of the forms on the earth. So we know that we have mountain. And in India, which mountain we have? Main mountain. You can say it is Himalayas. This is the fact. Now, what is the role of geomorphology here? What does geomorphology tells you, or what does it want to investigate? Several things. First of all, if you look in the simplest term, the question that should come in mind, suppose that you have come from outside of Earth, you have never seen any planet like Earth, any kind of feature like Earth, and you landed on the Earth and you saw what? Himalayas. Now, what is the first question that will come to your mind? Suppose that in your life you have never seen a mountain like a structure. So, what should the question that can come into mind? What can that question can come into your mind? That is why. Why means why such kind of landform exists. Okay, why mountain exists, and this is the answer that geomorphology try to give. That means you can say it explains what? It explains the formation or origin of any landscape, mountains, plateaus, plain, whatever it is, right? That is the first point you can write here. Okay. The answer to the questions like why about a particular landscape, why referring to formation or origin of a landscape. Same thing I do with the plains also, plateaus also, desert also, and this polar areas, glaciers, everything like that. That is the first part. So that's the thing. Now we will discuss that in the class, that how this Himalayas come to existence or a mountain form. Okay, like for example, this is today explained by which theory? So in geomorphology we'll discuss later what a very important theory called as plate tectonics. Okay, so how did Himalaya come into existence? Today we know. What do we know? That earlier Indian landmass was somewhere here. Okay, and here what you had? You had the other continent that is referred as Eurasia. Okay, now India kept on moving northward, and finally a time come when what happened? Indian landmass collided with the Eurasian landmass. Now after this collision, what happened? Whatever sediments you have, rocks you have, they get compressed, and after compression what happened to them? They got lifted up, and this lifted structure is what we see today in the form of Himalayas. Okay, so this can be explained by studying geomorphology. Clear? So we'll study in detail about this plate tectonics. It's a very important part of our syllabus. Second question it asked, first question, why? Second question it asks is where. Okay, your answer is where. Okay, any particular landscape, where we find it, where is it observed or recorded. Okay, like Himalayas are found where? Can say in the northern part of India. So question can be asked that why Himalayas in the northern part of India only? Why Himalaya did not form the central part of India, or why did not form the eastern part, western part and all that. So any landscape, wherever it is present, why it is present in that exact location itself. That is referring to which part of the question? Where part? Desert, where do we have desert in the case of India? Rajasthan, right? Thar desert you have in the northwestern part. So question can be asked, valid question can be asked, why only in the western part you have desert? Why in the eastern part, Meghalaya, northeast do not have desert? Why in the south you do not have desert like structures and all? Okay, is it a valid question or not? Yeah, it is a valid question. That also can be answered by which subject or which stream? Geomorphology. So where you try to explain by explaining about the geophysical changes, because any structure wherever it is forming, it forms because some geophysical changes are taking place there. So that is also we'll try to understand later, that what kind of geophysical changes and why it occurs at a particular place, resulting in formation of Himalayas. Here also we can look at example. So like question can be asked that why Thar desert is located in the Rajasthan or western part of India. So how geomorphology can answer it? Let us say we are talking about India. This is the map of India. Now here in the upper part, this is the region where you have Thar desert. If you go exactly on the same line, this side, here you have dense lush green forest. Okay, very high density vegetation in the northeastern part and all that, Meghalaya. Okay, further up you have the Assam, Bhutan, okay, all these regions and all. So you can see latitude wise it is same latitude, exactly at the same location. But on the western part you have desert, eastern part you have dense green forest, exact opposite kind of landscape, different kind of landscape, right? So how you will answer it? So that also can be answered easily. Okay, and later on in the climatology chapter we'll discuss about this. Here you have hill that is recently very much in news. Okay, you would have read about it. That is Aravallis. Okay, and here also you have hills in Meghalaya state in the northeastern India. So we have several hill ranges: Garo hills, Khasi hills, Jayantia hills, and all that. So it is all because of what? How these hills are located. Okay, detail I am not going about here. We'll discuss the mechanism, but for now I can simply tell you that why we have desert in any area, because rainfall is less or more, very less. Only if there is a very low rainfall, we'll have development of desert like conditions, right? So what happens here when the winds move, like here example, how winds are moving here? We can say the winds here coming from the sea, they move parallel to Aravallis. So if the winds move parallel to Aravallis, they do not rise up along the mountain. Okay, and for rainfall what do you require? Require rising of wind, then only condensation happen, cloud formation happen, and rainfall happen, right? Mechanism we'll discuss, but for now we can keep this thing in mind that when rainfall will occur at any place, the most essential condition is wind should be moving in which direction? From surface toward the upward direction. Then condensation happen, cloud formation, and rainfall happens. But here, because mountain is like this, winds are moving parallelly. Parallelly means they move what? Near the surface itself without rising up. That is why here no rainfall. And that is why what do you have here? Desert like condition. Similarly, if you talk about this area, what do we have? Mountain. Here also winds are moving, right? Winds move, and from here winds move. But you see the winds are coming how? Perpendicular to the mountain. That is why what happens? They are forced to rise in the upward direction. And what happens here? Heavy amount of rainfall is recorded. And that is why not only in India, if someone asks you where you have the wettest place on the earth, wettest place means which receives highest amount of rainfall throughout the year. What is the name of the place? What I'm talking about is wettest place on the earth, which receives heaviest amount of rainfall. So answer would be what? Mawsyn Ram. Where is Mawsyn Ram? In the Meghalaya. Clear? So see how this diverse landscape we have. This is one of the driest region of the earth here, and this is what on the other hand we have the wettest region on the earth. This region receive maximum amount of rainfall on the earth. This region receive minimum amount of rainfall on the earth. Yes, that is the beauty of geography. Okay, both are very close in the same country. You can see in same country two different kind of landscape, exactly opposite landscape and all that you find here. And this is what geomorphology also try to answer, that why a particular landscape develops, where it develops. So why, where, and the third and the last question it want to answer is what. Third part is what part. What basically refer to the future changes. For example, today we have Himalayas. For example, Himalayas. Let's talk about the tallest peak. Tallest peak of Himalayas, and we can say tallest peak on the entire earth. What is the name? That is Mount Everest. Okay, so currently it is the tallest peak in Himalayas as well as on the entire earth as such. Now, what geomorphology try to answer? That how this or what kind of changes will happen in the future. For example, Himalayas today also is one of the loftiest mountain on the earth. If you come back millions of years later, what will happen to Himalayas? Will its height keep on increasing? Will its height keep on decreasing? Or will become kind of stagnant, okay, kind of uniform nature as such. So that is basically what part. That means it largely concerns with the future changes. Okay, future changes in the landscape. That's how we can write it. Okay, the what part answers the future changes. Future changes in the landscape. Clear? Done? So that is the three part that geomorphology try to answer. Why? That means a particular structure, how did it come to existence, origin, formation of Himalayas, for example. Second, why it exists, where it exists, why Himalayas in the north, why desert in the west. Okay. And third is in the future, what we can expect taking place in these structures as such. Like example, desert again if you take. Okay. Currently Aravali was a news. Did you read about it or not? Hear about it? Right. Why Aravali was a news? What is going on? Suppose this is the Aravalis. This side what do we have? This is the region where we have Pakistan, and the border we have Thar desert as such. And here somewhere, for example, I can say you have what? Delhi. So what government said? They said that in the Aravalis only those part will considered as hill which is above how many meters? 100 meters high. If any part of the hill is less than 100 meters, we cannot consider it as hill. Now, what is the significance of this move? If you cannot consider any part as a hill, suppose that 93% of Aravalis today are how much meter? Less than 100 meters such. That means 93% of Aravalis as per this directive of government will not be considered as hill. And if it is not considered as hill, that means it cannot get protected status as such. That means government can give this to any companies and all that, and they can start digging it, mining it and destroying it. Okay, they can carry out construction activities and everything around that. That will lead to what? Entire mountain system being destroyed as such. So imagine that currently it is like uniform structure. Okay, you have like this. After 10, 15, 20 years, what will happen? Due to continuous destruction, we can say Aravalis will become like this. Okay, rather than having this continuous structure, it will become what? Fragmented. Why? Because you have dug up. Okay, you have carried out large scale excavation work and construction work. Again, if you remember, what do we have here? Thar desert. Here we have the entire North India, Delhi, UP, all these states we have. Now, Aravalis today protect us. How? Because the sand that is blowing from the Aravalis, for example, they are being prevented from entering in this part. Okay, because sand blows, Aravalis is acting like a barrier. Okay, sand blows by wind. Then again, what happens? All sand remain in this side only. They're not able to go on the other side, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana and all that, which is the urban area, which is the agricultural area. Imagine if Aravalli become like this. What will happen? There is nothing to prevent this sand moving along with wind and reaching where? This entire area. So the entire fertile plain that you have in India, where you do the most of the agricultural activity, right? Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, part of Madhya Pradesh, they will become what? Desert. Okay, even the urban areas, Delhi, okay, you have nearby Gurugram, right, Noida and all that. That area will also experience what? Dust storm like things and all. So overall, what you can say, the quality of life will become bad for people. Okay, agriculture production will also go down. But who will have advantage? Who will have benefit? The businessman, the industrialist, okay, because they have destroyed the entire Aravallis for making money and all that. So this was something that was done by government. Supreme Court also said about it, and then large scale protest has erupted. Okay, so this is the reason why it is new. So this also referred to what? Future changes as such. Okay, and it's not very importantly, if you look here, what I told you, 93% of Aravalli today is less than 100 meters in elevation. Clear? Himalayas, on the other hand, average elevation of Himalaya, the greater Himalayas basically talk about is how much? 6,100 meter. Even the lowermost part of Himalaya, Shivalik range, there even average elevation is how much? 900 meters. So Himalayas today we can say is higher than Aravallis or lower than Aravallis? Higher than Aravallis. Okay, 9-10 times higher than Aravallis as such. But what if I tell you that millions of years ago, Aravallis was even higher than what? Himalayas. Okay, highest elevation of Himalaya is how much? 6,100 meter. As per geological study, at once upon a time, Aravallis was at least how many meters high? 8,100 meters. Today, what is the average elevation? 100 meters. So see, from 8,000 meter to 100 meters. What is going on? Height is continuously reducing. So this is coming under which part? What part? Okay, the kind of changes that we have witnessed. Now, why it happens, we'll discuss that in class geomorphology. Okay, that what is the reason behind changing landscape. Okay, so this is the point. That's what we have to study in geomorphology. Now, in geomorphology, if you look at the chapters, topics we'll be dealing with. So, first, before coming to the surface of Earth, we also need to have a brief idea about the internal structure of Earth. So chapters we can read. What are the important topics or chapters of geomorphology? So first is internal structure of Earth. Then second point we can read is the Earth's surface movement. Earth's surface movement. Internal structure, understand? Internal structure means what we are talking about. The entire Earth. If you start to go deeper inside, what will happen? It will keep going down. Up to what point? Where is the center of Earth? Suppose we are at the surface today. If you keep digging, you will reach where? Center of the Earth. So, at what distance center of Earth lies? Roughly we can say 6,400 kilometers. Okay, so you have multiple layers basically. So, how these layers are arranged, how these layers have formed, what are the names of these layers, okay, characteristics, properties and all that we have to study in the internal structure of Earth itself, right? Temperature changes, pressure changes, and if I ask you how far did we dig inside the Earth? What is the radius or what is the distance from surface to center? 6,400 kilometers. Now we can understand we have such our limitation by the fact that till now we have been able to dig only up to how many kilometers? 12 kilometers. Okay, the maximum depth up to which we have drilled a hole. Okay, we have not went there. We have just drilled a hole by using machines. Is how far? Only 12 kilometers. What is the center of Earth? How far? 6,400. Okay, so still we have what very limited idea, understanding about the internal structure of Earth, what kind of changes are taking place, okay, what kind of phenomena and events are occurring there. Okay, so that we'll talk about. So internal structure of Earth, then we have the Earth's surface movement. Surface movement means, for example, we know today that Earth's surface is not stationary. Like today we have India at certain place, Sri Lanka at certain place, Africa at certain place. If you come after a few million years, Africa will not remain where it is today. India will not remain where it is today as such. Right? This you knew or not? North America, South America, wherever they are today. If you go back 100 million years ago, India was not where it is today. Right? So obviously after 100 million years ago, what will happen? India will be at some other places, Africa will be at some other place. And this I can give you an example to understand it better. Like if you look at the map, you have seen the world map, you have some idea about where the continents at least are present, right? So if this is India, for example, right? If you go here, what do you have? Pakistan. Okay, further you go, you have Iran. Okay, and then you have this region. What is this region? This region is called as Arabian Peninsula. Okay, you have Arabian countries and all that. And then example here. Which is this landmass? And this is the African continent and such. So Africa, Arabia, and then India, then further Asia, China, Japan, all that you'll find. Now currently this is the situation. Okay, so what scientists say that 10 million years later, if you come on the earth, this Africa today is a single continent. Okay, what will happen to it after 10 million years? It will break apart. Break apart into how many parts? 2 parts. Somewhere from this zone. That means 10 million years later, this part will separate, this part will separate. And this part after separation, what will happen? It will keep moving eastward. And it will keep moving after 30-40 million years ago, what will happen? This part will reach where? Where you have India. Okay, and it will collide with India. So today India's structure looks something like this. After collision, what will happen? The map of India will look something like this. Okay, so what is it pointing toward? That the surface of Earth is continuously changing. Configuration does not remain same all the time, and that is what we study in which chapter? Surface movement of Earth as such. Okay, so that is the basic idea about this particular chapter. So Earth's surface movement, and this surface movement is explained by 4 theories, which is also considered as the foundational theory of geography. So that is what you can write here. Earth's surface movement studied under foundational theory, and called as foundational theory of geography. Foundational because it laid the foundation for geography as a separate subject as such. That made it different from the other disciplines. So foundational theory, and 4 important theories we'll discuss here, that we can highlight the names, at least we can write. And these are also very important from examination perspective as well. In both prelims and mains, repeatedly questions have been asked from these particular topics. So first theory is what we call as continental drift theory. So continental drift theory. Second theory that we'll be studying is called as convection current theory. Okay, convection current theory. Third one we can say is referred as sea floor spreading theory. Sea floor spreading theory. And fourth, which is the most important one, versatile one, is what we call as plate tectonics. Plate tectonics theory. So these are, we have 4 theories: continental drift, then we have the convection current, sea floor spreading theory, and plate tectonics theory. So in geomorphology, I told you 3 questions: what, how, why, where, and what. All of these are answered by what theories? These 4 theories. Okay, so any landscape you take, ask questions about it, you will find answer by going through these 4 theories itself. Okay, like Western Ghat also, nearby what do we have? Himalayas is far from us. Nearby what do we have? Which mountain range? Western Ghats. Okay, if you go few hundred kilometers from Bangalore to the west as such. Western Ghat will start. So question can also be asked about it, that why do Western Ghat exist first of all, or how did Western Ghat come into existence? What will answer it? Plate tectonics theory. Question can be asked that why Western Ghat is found in the western part of India? Okay, why not in the central part or further up north and all that? Answered by which theory? Convection current theory. Okay, if question is asked that what will happen to Western Ghat few million years later, again can be answered by what? Continental drift theory. So all these aspects related to any of the land masses you can easily answer if you have understanding about what? These four theories such. Okay, and that makes up almost, we can say, 60%. Geomorphology, I told you, make up 60% of entire syllabus, and in geomorphology 60% of is what? These four theories itself. That means I can say, if you have proper understanding, if you have revised it properly, these four theory, you can understand that 60-70% of your geomorphology is what? Done as such. Okay, the question that will be asked is based on the concept of these theories itself, application of these concepts you will see in the prelims and mains examination, all that. So this is what we have to focus and give this attention to. So that's the, which chapter we have discussed? The first chapter is internal structure, second chapter is Earth's surface movement. Okay. Then third chapter is referred as geophysical phenomena. Right, geophysical phenomena. Geophysical phenomena is a geographical term. In simple word, if you say, it is also called as natural disasters or natural hazards as such. So what are the natural disasters we face in India? Right. First look at geomorphology, because flood and all that will come in hydrosphere. Water part we're not talking about here. Okay, so what do we experience? Earthquake. Okay, so earthquake can also trigger what? Okay, landslides. Okay, so earthquake, landslides, right? Plus, not only India but across the world, if you look, what is the other natural disaster being recorded everywhere? That is volcanism or volcanic eruption. Okay, so earthquake, landslides, volcanic eruption, and both earthquake and volcanic eruption, if it is taking place in ocean, what it can trigger? Can trigger tsunamis. That also, because it is associated with the same phenomena, we can write here. So these are the four major geophysical phenomena we have to cover in this particular chapter in entire detail. Okay, why earthquake occurs, how earthquake occurs, where do they occur, right? Effect and all that. So earthquake, landslides, volcanic eruption, then we have tsunami. And the last chapter, the fourth chapter of geomorphology, you can say, is about rock system. Rock system. In rock system, we have to look at the types of rock, the characteristics of rock, types of rock, characteristic of rock, and then finally rock cycle. Rock cycle. So three topics we have to cover in this chapter: the types of rock, characteristic of rock, and rock cycle. Done. So these four chapters make up which part? Geomorphology. What is geomorphology? Again, geo plus morpho plus logy, the study of various forms on the earth to understand three things. What things? Again, same thing. What we have discussed? Why. Then we have where. Then we have what. Okay, and that can be understood by these four chapters. That's the first part of geography, that is geomorphology. Again, in other way, what we have discussed here, Earth has been divided into three parts: lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere. Study of lithosphere is what we are calling at geomorphology. That means the chapters we have discussed, in essence, we can say it is nothing but explanation or description of which part of the earth? Lithosphere part of the earth. Okay, the solid land part of the earth where we largely live. That is the first section. Second section of geography is what? Related to the water part. Okay, so we already know that if you look at the entire surface of the earth, and say 70%. 70% of area is covered under ocean water. 70%. 70% of area is covered under ocean water. Done, right? So how many oceans do we have? This is the basic concept, the fact you should be aware about. On the entire earth, we can divide ocean into how many parts? 5 ocean. Okay, what are the name? Largest one, what is the largest one? Pacific Ocean, right? It is so large that if you take the photograph from the space in the Pacific Ocean side, you will see no land anywhere. What you will see? Only water and water. So almost we can say 50% roughly of entire earth's surface is covered by what? Pacific Ocean itself. Okay, that is the point. So Pacific Ocean, then what do we have? Atlantic Ocean, then Indian Ocean, and then what else? What do we have? Arctic Ocean. What is the fifth one? Fifth one is called as Southern Ocean. Okay, so these are the 5 oceans that we have on the earth, covering up 70% of Earth's surface area. So that is why Earth is sometimes also called as water planet or blue planet. Why? Because it reflects blue color. But you can see that is where the irony is, because even Earth has 70% of surface under water. What we face in many part of the earth? Scarcity or crisis of water. What is the reason? Because this water you have in the ocean, can it be used directly? No. Why it cannot be used directly? Because it is saline water, salt water. Okay. What we need for our purposes? We need fresh water. So 70% of Earth's surface covered under water, that is true. But all these water is which kind of water? Saline water. Okay, 30% of remaining water that you have, no, actually water content wise, if you look, 97% of Earth's water is where? In the ocean itself. 70% is area. Volume wise, 97% of Earth's water is in the ocean. That means for our purpose, how much water we have only? 3% of the entire planet's water only is available to us. But not all 3% again. Out of that 3%, 75% of that is locked in the form of ice sheets and glacier. That means it is solid form. You cannot directly consume it. Okay, so 3% out of 375% again is not available. What is available? 25% of 3% only. Okay, so now you can understand how a small amount we have. Even in this 25%, large amount is present where? In the atmosphere. Humidity is also part of water. Now you cannot directly drink humidity, right? So that means it is also not usable. Some amount, 30%, is around the soil, in the soil layer. That means wet soil that you see. Again, that cannot be used directly. What we can use for our purposes? The water that is present in rivers, water that is present in lakes, water that is found where? In the groundwater reservoir, which you can extract by digging a well, tube well and all this. That makes a very, very minuscule percentage. Okay, so that is why what we face? Water crisis everywhere, and it is expected to worsen with passage of time. In India also, many cities in the next coming decade will experience very great extent of water crisis, and the recent report by United Nations have said that Bangalore will become the first they have used term, something called as that city in India. That means here Bangalore will become the first city to experience large scale water crisis, something that we are seeing in the South Africa like Cape Town city. Okay, so 0 day it is called as 0 day city. 0 day city means the city will not have enough water to satisfy its population. Okay, that means you have depend on what? Some other city, some other state, okay, some other sources and all that. So that is what we are expected to experience in the future, okay, and that is why conservation of water is very, very important part of life, okay, that we should always focus upon. Clear? Huh? So what we're talking about is the hydrosphere. So hydrosphere, very, very important because covering the 70% of area. Now hydrosphere, as the study of lithosphere, what we have called it as? What is the study of lithosphere called as? Geomorphology. Similarly, if someone asks you what is the study of hydrosphere or the study of ocean. So in geography, the branch is referred as oceanography. Graphy again, graphias, that means description, simply means description of ocean. So oceanography, the study of hydrosphere is done in oceanography. If we look at the syllabus and the chapters we have to study, so we can highlight here. The first is relief and division of ocean. Relief and division of ocean. Okay. So how ocean is divided, we'll talk about that. Second is ocean properties. Ocean properties. Ocean properties, we have to study three different characteristic or properties here. First is temperature, second is density, and third is salinity. Yeah. Temperature, density, and salinity of the ocean. This is a very important chapter, especially in this chapter. If you look at the PYQs, which is the most important topic here, ocean salinity. Okay, frequently questions are asked from here. So three properties, with salinity being the most important one. How it varies, why it varies, this is what we have to largely discuss here. Third, then we have is the ocean movement. Ocean movement. Ocean movement is studied under two topics or two chapters within it. We have ocean current, and we have ocean tide. Ocean current and ocean tide. Right. So movement means in ocean what is moving? Water is moving, and water moves in two ways. One in the form of current and other in the form of tide. Tides means you must have heard about tide. Okay, what is ocean tide? Gravitational force of sun and moon is continuously pulling the water. Right. So suppose that earth is here and moon is here right now. What moon is doing? Applying gravitational force. Due to this gravitational force, what will happen? Water will be pulled toward moon. And if you are present around that area near the coast, what we would see? Rising of water level. If suppose moon moves here, in that case what will happen? Here water will fall down and here water will rise again. So now this place what you see? Right, falling of water level. Other place people will see again rise of water level. So these keep going on. Okay, overall you can imagine like what do you have as moon, as earth rotates, what happens? Different part of earth comes under moon as such. So you have kind of water bulge that keeps on moving around the earth as such, and this is what we call as ocean tide here. Okay, you have been in coastal areas, or if you go to coastal areas and the beaches, you will see that if you are sitting near the coast, okay, and suppose you sit there for 24 hours, what you will see? Water level does not remain at the same place. Okay, what happens? Many time water moves toward you. After some time what will happen? Water will move away from you. Why water is moving toward the coast or away from coast? Okay, you would have seen in beach area what happened. People many times they are like small, you have food stalls and hotels and resorts and all that. Okay, so when you have low tide, when water is further away from the coast, what do? They put all their shack, okay, they have the stool tables and everything they put. But when high tide comes, they have to take everything and go further up. Why? Because water level increases there. Okay, so this is because of simply the movement of earth, and due to this you have change in the relative position of sun and moon as such. This movement is what you call as ocean tide here. Plus, because you know that in the ocean continuously wind is flowing from one part to other part. So as the wind will move above the ocean, what will it do? Apply frictional forces on the water. And if wind is moving from suppose west to east direction, what this wind above ocean will do? It will also drag ocean water with itself as such. Okay, so you'll have ocean water movement, you'll have the movement of the wind, and this is what you call as ocean currents. That means in a sense we can say the movement of ocean water due to wind is current. The movement of ocean water due to gravitational force of sun and moon is tide. Okay, so that point we can write here, largely driven by, we can say, ocean current driven by wind, and ocean tide, you can say, due to gravitational force of sun and moon. Gravitational force of sun and moon. So this is in detail we have to study about, and out of the entire, in the entire oceanography, if I say, which is the most important chapter of oceanography from examination perspective, can mark it here, ocean movement, the most important chapter. 70% of questions in oceanography in the last 10 years, if you look, have been asked from which chapter? This particular chapter itself, right? So ocean movement. And then last chapter we have to study here is the coral reef. About coral reef distribution, significance, and bleaching. Coral reef distribution, significance, and bleaching. Done? Clear? So that is how we can understand it. So coral reef, we'll discuss about it. Coral reef basically are very important ecosystem, a biodiversity hotspot, we can say, in the ocean as such. And you can understand this from the fact that in the entire ocean, if you look at the area, they cover less than 1% of ocean area, but they support 40% of ocean life. Ocean life means both plant life as well as animal life. And that is what makes them very, very significant to understand. And that is why UPSC has included this in syllabus as such. So we can write here. Okay, this one important fact we can write about coral reef. Okay, they make up, they cover roughly 1% of ocean area. They cover roughly 1% of ocean area, but support around 40% of marine life. They cover roughly 1% of ocean area, but support roughly 40% of marine life. 40% of marine life. 40. Yeah, 40. 40. Yeah, 40% of marine life. So that's the 4 chapters, and this is again, they had become very important chapter these days because coral reef is continuously being impacted by, you can say, what event? Climate change as such. Okay, so climate change is something that has become quite real. The effect of climate change we are experiencing in our daily life or our daily life also, and that is why UPSC has begun to ask a lot of questions from climate change related aspect in environment as well as in geography. So that is why now it is also emerging as an important chapter here. So these are the 4 important chapters we have to cover in the study of hydrosphere, and this make up which part, which branch of geography? Oceanography, right? So relief and division of ocean, ocean properties, ocean movement, and coral reef as such. Okay, so that's the second part. So study of lithosphere, study of hydrosphere. What is the last part? Atmosphere. Okay, so we'll discuss about this one. So last part is study of atmosphere. A study of atmosphere. And the study of atmosphere is called as climatology. So third And this we can say is the most important part of geography, most important chapter or topic of geography. Out of all the topics we have to study in examination, we can say that it is the most important topic of geography. Right, so atmosphere, we know what is atmosphere. How will you define atmosphere in simplest term? So if you have, suppose this is the earth, right? On this surface you have land part as well as water part, that means lithosphere and hydrosphere. And where is atmosphere located? You can say it is surrounding the entire earth itself. So it is kind of, we can say, an envelope of gases that surround entire earth. And why it surround entire earth? Why the gases are not going out in the space or escaping in the space? Why do we have atmosphere? If you compare with moon, does moon have atmosphere? No. Okay, moon does not have atmosphere. Earth have atmosphere. What is the reason? Ozone is part of atmosphere. Why gases?
Gravitational force.
What force?
Gravitational force.
Yeah, very good. Because Earth's gravitational force is high enough that it can retain the gases around it. Okay. If suppose that someone come, some Superman come and reduce the size of Earth, okay, or compress it basically, okay, or break it into 3-4 parts, what will happen? Atmosphere will disappear. Right. That is the reason why moon does not have atmosphere. Why? Because moon is relatively very small in size, and gravity depends on what? Mass. Small size means a small mass. A small mass means a small gravitational force. Clear? And that is why the moon is not able to retain any gases around it. So we can say that what is atmosphere? An envelope of gas that surrounds the earth and is bound by earth's gravity. Okay, so you can write this definition if you want. In the atmosphere, it is an envelope of gases. It is an envelope of gases surrounding the earth, and bound by earth's gravity, and bound by earth's gravity. So this is the atmosphere, and study of atmosphere is done in the branch of geography that we call as climatology. Okay, again if you divide it, what do we have? Climate plus logy. Logy is what? Study of. Okay, and study of what you can call as climate. Climate basically one other term that we use, for example. What is the term that we use? General everyday life, weather. Another term that we use is climate. So what's the difference? Are they same or different? Okay, weather versus climate. Are they same or different? They are different. How are they different? If someone asks you, okay, that what is outside's weather today? Okay, what are you talking about? Whatever you are seeing, that means weather is something that is what? A short-term phenomena. Climate is something you cannot say today's Bangalore climate is this, tomorrow's Bangalore climate will be this, next day it will be like. Climate is what? Something that is kind of permanent in nature as such. So hundreds and hundreds of year climate will remain what? Similar. Why? We are looking at the long-term average, okay, or long-term changes overall. Weather is something that is short duration changes. It can change from hour to hour. Like in Bangalore, many times you see in the morning what do you have? Cloudy weather. In the afternoon, what do you have? Sunny weather. In evening, what do you have? Especially in rainy season, very rainy weather as such, right? So that is the difference here. Weather, in simplest term, we can say it refers to short-term changes in atmosphere, right? Because all these changes are taking place in atmosphere itself. So weather refers to short-term changes in atmosphere, while climate refers to the long-term changes in atmosphere. So short-term change versus long-term change. And that is weather versus climate. Done? Clear? So the study of this is done in the climatology, and what we try to understand here, changes that take place in the atmosphere, for example, and it is very critical for us. Okay, many times we do not understand how significant is the atmosphere, because if suppose tomorrow atmosphere of Earth disappear, will life survive on the Earth? Will life exist, or it will also disappear? It will also disappear. Why will it disappear? Why we are dependent, or life is dependent on atmosphere? On what basis, or on what factor we are dependent on atmosphere? Respiration. Okay, so oxygen, and plants need what? Carbon dioxide. Both is coming from what? Atmosphere. So if atmosphere disappear, both plant life as well as animal life, human life, whatever we talk about, it will completely go extinct and such. Okay, and this is very important to understand, because I told you just now, if you look at, this is the center of Earth, which is lying how much? 6,400 kilometers as such. If you look at the atmospheric layer, the gaseous layer that makes up the atmosphere, from the surface, if you measure, okay, majority of atmosphere is up to how many kilometers? 20 kilometers. 90% of the gases, if you talk about in atmosphere, are found within 20 kilometers. So you can imagine, compared to the size of Earth, atmosphere is what? Very, very thin layer as such. Okay, and many times geographers also explain it, like to understand the comparison between the size of Earth and atmosphere, you can consider an apple. Okay, so apple, you have certain size of apple, and apple, what do you have? The peel that you can talk about. Okay, so what is the thickness of the peel? That is the thickness of your atmosphere, and the entire apple, when you peel it out, it will be what? It will be your Earth. Okay, so very small part of the Earth, but very, very critical, very significant, without which life cannot exist on the planet. And what we are doing today these days, we are continuously polluting it, we are continuously degrading it. So continuously health of atmosphere is declining, right? And who will be in the end, who will have disadvantage because of this? It will be us only. Okay, and that is why you will see in the what is these days this discussion going around, or the what you can say, everyone talking about pollution. Okay, so atmospheric pollution is not only this, right? So atmospheric pollution is not something that we can say is only short term changes. Once you pollute the atmosphere, that pollutant remains for what? Very, very long period of time. And every year what we are doing? Continuously polluting the atmosphere. So quality of atmosphere, its life sustaining attributes or characteristic is continuously undergoing decline and all that. Okay, and time will come when it will become impossible for it to support life on the Earth. So that is why very important, and the climatology. So if you look at the chapters that we have to study in climatology, the first is evolution, structure, and composition of atmosphere. Evolution, structure. Since we have discussed 5 oceans, so we can say changes are taking place on the land surface, changes are taking place in the water surface, and also changes are taking place where? In the atmosphere. And these changes we study in which part? Evolution, right? When Earth formed, what is the age of Earth? And talk about the formation. Okay, Earth formed. So age of Earth, it's not that Earth existed since the beginning of time itself. Okay, Earth is what? A very new planet if you compare with the other planets of solar system. This universe. So how old is our Earth? It is believed to be about 4.5 billion years. Okay, 4.5 billion years means million. If you convert it, it is how many million years? 4,500 million years. Okay, so this is the age of the Earth. So since last 4,500 million years, Earth's atmosphere also has undergone significant changes, and that is what we will try to understand here. Like when Earth came into existence, oxygen did not exist. What do you have? Only hydrogen and helium. No other gases are present in the Earth's atmosphere. What else? What only? Hydrogen and helium. Then gradually as the time passed, lot of phenomena will discuss occurred that led to release of other gases, nitrogen, argon, right? You have carbon dioxide, water vapor, sulfur dioxide and all that. And then after many years, many years means we can say 700 million years ago from now, we believe that oxygen began to become part of atmosphere. How oxygen became part of atmosphere, it is a mystery, but several theories explain it. One of the theory is that initially you have a special kind of plant that developed in the oceans of the earth, right? What plants? Animals basically, we can say, that is cyanobacteria is a term that we will discuss later. Okay, so it is believed that cyanobacteria began to photosynthesize. Photosynthesis, if you understand, what is photosynthesis? Plants are absorbing carbon dioxide and what they are emitting? Oxygen. So due to this photosynthesis, what happened? Oxygen concentration began to increase. Okay, and gradually as the population of these cyanobacteria, these microorganisms grew, oxygen concentration also grew. And once sufficient amount of oxygen became part of atmosphere, it began to sustain higher form of life. So you have single cellular organism, then you have multicellular organism, then you have complex organisms. So you have fishes, then you have amphibians, then you have reptiles, then you have birds, and finally what came? Mammals. Okay, in the last stage of evolution as such, right? Mammals also then further kept on evolving. So dinosaurs, for example. Okay, after that reptilian age ended, then we have the evolution of humans and all that. So all of these is related to what? Evolution. If I ask that suppose Earth atmosphere did never change, okay, imagine that earlier what you have heard, only hydrogen and helium was present in the atmosphere. If this condition persisted till today, would humanity exist on the earth? No. Okay, so we can say directly that it is the evolution of atmosphere that has helped in evolution of life on the earth, that has helped us in evolution of human beings on the earth. Without evolution of atmosphere, humans would not have existed. Any other animal that we see around us would not maybe have existed as such. Okay, so that is why very important to understand this particular part. Second is the structure part. Okay, structure of atmosphere, because it's not that if you start your journey from the surface and suppose you are going up, it's not that at every height you will find the same type of atmosphere. The composition of gases will keep on changing. The density of the gases will keep on changing and such. Okay, you have different gas in different part. Like ozone, we have discussed, right? So ozone is not found in the lower layer. 95% of ozone is found where? Between 15 to 50 kilometers of layer as such. Beyond that, what will have? Ions only you will see. Okay, highly ionized ions and all that. Beyond, if you go, density becomes so less that if you keep your hand there, there is no possibility that any gaseous molecule will come and interact with your hand and all that. So all this will study in which part? Structure. Okay, so overall we'll study the atmosphere is divided into 5 parts as such, starting from surface to the top. And last, the same, that is composition, means what are the gases that makes up our today's atmosphere. Very important, today's atmosphere, because again, if I'm saying that atmosphere is evolving, if you come back 50 million years later, whatever composition you have today, that composition will obviously change. And you can see changes in your life also, in our life also taking place. Earlier, before industrial revolution, the concentration of carbon dioxide was less. Today what we have? Higher concentration of CO2. Why? Because we have started developing industries, we have started developing vehicles. All these vehicles, industries, they are continuously releasing carbon dioxide. So the data states that in last 200 million years, the not 200 million years, last 200 years, in last 200 years, carbon dioxide concentration has changed from 290 to 415. Okay, this is measured in ppm. Okay, 290 ppm and 415 ppm. ppm means parts per million, right? So if you take 1 million molecules of atmospheric gases, 290 molecules will be of carbon dioxide. Today, how much we have? 415. And continuously, if I ask, is this expected to rise or fall in the future? Rise, because we are bringing more and more industries. We are every day, like in Bangalore itself, you talk about, okay, every day thousands of cars are being sold. When these cars will ply on the road, what they will do? Release CO2. Okay, and all the CO2 will go where? in the atmosphere as such. Okay, so that's the example of changes taking place. So present composition we'll talk about, and I think all of you know what is the gas found, which is the gas with highest concentration in atmosphere. Okay, which gas is found in highest concentration in our atmosphere?
Nitrogen.
Nitrogen, right? So nitrogen, then we have second oxygen, right? So nitrogen, oxygen, two major gases. That also can change in future. So evolution, structure, composition of atmosphere. Second chapter is about insolation and temperature. And see, I told you that in the geography, which is the most important topic we have discussed, it is climatology. Why? Because in other chapters talk about lithosphere, I told you some topics are more important. In the hydrosphere, oceanography, some topics are more important. If you look at in climatology, all topics UPSC gives equal importance to. So you cannot say the first chapter is more important, second chapter is more important. All are equal important. So all you have to have proper understanding and give equal attention to. So that's the point. So insolation and temperature, second chapter. Insolation is short of where the earth's surface get its energy from. Where do we get our energy from? From the sun. Okay, so insolation means incoming solar radiation. Okay, about that we have to study. Okay. Insolation, that is incoming solar radiation and how it relates with the temperature on the earth. So insolation, incoming solar radiation and temperature. Okay, will life exist if sun disappears? Yes or no? No, because sun is the main source of energy for us. Okay, so plants do photosynthesis in presence of sunlight. If sunlight is not present, photosynthesis cannot take place. That means plants cannot generate oxygen, right? Plant is food for the animals, right? So what will happen? The entire animal life, human life will be completely devastated. So that is why very important to understand this also. Yeah, that sun is the source of energy. Sun is the source of, that is why it is also called as source of life. Why sun is source of life? Because without sun, life cannot exist on our planet. So if question is asked that will sun always protect us or will provide life to the earth? Everything in universe is stagnant or changing? Changing. Change is, we can say, only universal truth, right? And that means today if we talk about, here we have sun for example, right? And what are the planets? Mercury, then we have Mercury, Venus, third planet is Earth. Okay, so somewhere here you have the Earth. So sun is continuously bombarding that with light energy and all that, right? Now if I say that you go further 4.5 billion years, I told you is the age of Earth. So same 4.5 billion years you go where? In the future from now. So 4.5 billion years later, for example, if you go, what we know that sun size will increase. How much will it increase? It will increase to such an extent that it will become like this. What is going on here? Mercury, Venus now are where? Inside sun. Earth is somewhere where? In the outer part, like we can say boundary zone and all that. But now you can imagine, if this is the situation, sun is giving us what? So high energy that that energy itself is destructive in nature. So everything is required in moderation. Too less is also bad. Too much is also bad, because here what do we have? Too much of energy. Temperature of earth will rise by thousands of degrees of Celsius. So in that case, can life exist? No. Okay, maybe some other kind of life may exist, some other new organism and all that. But the life as the present time that we see, humans, animals, okay, plants, they all will be simply gone as such. Okay, so like this is the situation. So we know that if everything goes well, okay, first of all, it is very unlikely that everything will go well. Before this, this natural factors will end humanity, humanity themselves will end itself. Okay, that is the truth. But still, suppose by some miracle, humanity is able to survive for such an extended period of time. What will happen? The sun itself will kill us in the end as such. Okay. And that time, that is why many of the astronomers believe that when this is the situation, here what do we have? Next planet is Mars. So currently Mars does not have life supporting conditions. But if the sun size start to increase and become something like this size, okay, or slightly smaller, that time it is expected that Mars will come in what we call as habitable zone. Okay, that means there you might have possibility of origin of new life. Or if you are able to migrate to the Mars, then you might be able to survive at that time. Okay, so if you are able to build the spacefaring capability in the near future, some of the human race can be saved. Okay, they can survive because they will be at the Mars and all. So that is how the changes are taking place and will occur in the future also. So this we have to study. In astronomy is a small part we have talked about before starting the major topics. There we'll talk how this and why this will happen. We also have talked about that. I told you just here the size will increase. Okay, and later in the classes we'll discuss that why the sun's size is expected to increase in the future. So we'll cover that. So anyway, insolation and temperature, a very important chapter. Third chapter is atmospheric pressure and wind circulation. Atmospheric pressure and wind circulation. So atmospheric pressure and wind circulation. This is also related to temperature itself. Okay, so third chapter is given here. Pressure means, what is atmospheric pressure? We have discussed atmosphere is made up of gases, and gases molecule have certain energy. So they are basically transferring this energy to the surface, and this is seen in the form of what? Atmospheric pressure as such, right? And because of this pressure, what we see on the earth? Circulation of wind. If suppose imagine everywhere on the earth you had same pressure, there would not have been any movement of wind. Okay, and how wind is also very important for the sustenance of life, because it brings what? It brings moisture, it brings humidity, it causes rainfall. If there is no wind movement, there will not be any rainfall. If there is no rainfall, crop production will suffer. Food security will be compromised. That means again support of life or support to the life will be less. So we'll discuss about that. Very important point. Okay, atmospheric pressure and wind circulation. If I ask that on the earth's surface, like this is how we can draw the surface. Right? This is the sea, for example, or ocean that we have. Okay. All the land masses are what? Above the ocean. So plain we talk about, this is suppose plain area, this is suppose plateau area. This further what do we have? Mountains and all that you see. So this is surface number 1 on the ocean, this is surface number 2 plain, this is surface number 3 plateau, and this is the surface number 4, that is the top of any mountain, where you would expect highest atmospheric pressure. Out of 1, 2, 3 and 4, where would you expect highest atmospheric pressure? 4. 1. Why 1? What is the region?
Pressure exits downwards.
Okay, so basically which place? Sea surface we can say. What will experience? Maximum atmospheric pressure. What is atmospheric pressure? Pressure exert, see pressure in physics, all of you have studied physics in lower classes. What is pressure? How do we define pressure? Force upon area. Force exerted per unit area, that is pressure. Atmospheric pressure is what? Atmospheric force. What is exerting atmospheric force? Atmospheric gases. So you can say higher the number of gases, higher will be the force, higher will be the pressure. We just have discussed that atmosphere basically is bound by Earth's gravity. Where gravitational force will be highest? Near the surface. That means what will happen here? The number of gases molecule will be maximum. As you go up, what will happen? Number of gases molecule keep on reducing. Okay, you can think also from practical example. If someone goes to hike Mount Everest or climb Mount Everest, we can say, do they need oxygen cylinder or not? Right? Or even if you go in mountains, suppose Ladakh, Leh Ladakh area, what would you feel or generally people feel? Breathlessness. Why? Because oxygen is less. Why oxygen is less? Because the number of gases molecule is less here. If someone goes on the sea surface near the coastal area, will they feel breathlessness? No, because they have very good abundant amount of oxygen. So here we can say higher is the number of gases molecule, higher is the force, higher is the pressure. As you climb up, what happens? Number of gases molecule keep on reducing. And at the top of Mount Everest, if you consider, it will be very, very low. So here what we can say, atmospheric pressure will be lowest. Here atmospheric pressure will be highest. Okay, as general rule of thumb, you can say that as you move away from the surface vertically, as you go up from the surface vertically, what happens? Number of gases molecule reduces, atmospheric pressure also reduces as such. Clear? So sea level is where you will have the highest atmospheric pressure. So that is the third chapter we have to cover. Then fourth chapter is related to weather phenomena. We have talked about several important weather phenomena. Weather phenomena. So the weather phenomena we have talked about, we can write here description. First is temperate cyclone. We are talking about it. Temperate cyclone. Then we have tropical cyclone. Temperate cyclone. Tropical cyclone. Then we have thunderstorm. Thunderstorm. Then we have next one we have talked about is the tornadoes. Tornadoes. And last is anticyclone. Okay, anticyclone. So these are the 5 important weather phenomena. In detail we have to study here. Temperate cyclone, tropical cyclone, thunderstorm, tornadoes and anticyclone. All of these are again result of wind movement. That is why you see there is a clear relation. First, what do we have? Changes taking place in atmosphere. Then what do we have? Insolation, incoming solar radiation that causes temperature changes. Temperature changes causes pressure changes. Pressure changes causes wind movement. And wind movement causes what? Weather phenomena. If wind stops moving on the planet, none of these weather phenomena would be observed as such. Okay, so very, very important. And then in each of or in all of these weather phenomena, one thing that is common, you can say, is humidity. You will find at many places, and many of these weather phenomena also brings what? Rainfall. Okay, so last chapter of climatology, the 5th chapter, we have to cover 2 important concepts, that is humidity and rainfall. Humidity and rainfall. So these are the 5 chapters, and as stated before, all these 5 chapters are equally important. You will see a balance of questions. If you look at last 15 years of question paper, analyze it, you will see that it's not that some questions or some topics are being preferred. Okay, they are giving basically asking questions from each of these 5 chapters every now and then. And also why I am saying that it is very important, because other chapters, okay, you have to focus on only those topics only. This particular chapter of climatology, again it will be used where? In Indian geography also, because in India we have to study climate of India. Climate of India is nothing but the application of the concepts that you would learn here. That means if you are well aware about the concepts in this chapter, climate of India will be very easy to understand. Okay, you just have to simply remember some facts, otherwise no new concepts will be introduced there. That overall concludes the 3rd part. What is 3rd part? Climatology. Study of which region? Atmosphere. Right. So lithosphere, geomorphology, hydrosphere, oceanography, and atmosphere, that is climatology. So now if you we can say, if you combine all of this together, right, like for example, geomorphology, plus oceanography plus climatology. Together, they are also referred as physical geography. Okay, so many times in books or in some places you would find the topic mentioned as physical geography. So what is physical geography? Now you understand physical geography is nothing but all these three together, that is geomorphology, climatology and oceanography. And you can say they make up 60%. Okay, they make up 60% of the UPSC syllabus. Right, 60% of UPSC syllabus. So that's why we are going to discuss this in the beginning itself, and you should try to solve previous year questions once we complete the syllabus and all that. So PYQs are also becoming very important part of the this preparation today, right? Because if you look at the UPSC history of UPSC, 2013 is when you have major change or transformation of syllabus in one way, you can say. Lot of new topics were added. Entire this examination pattern itself underwent significant changes and all that. Both prelims examination, mains examination. Earlier did not have GS 1, 2, 3, 4 paper like this. Earlier questions were asked of 60 marks, 80 marks. Today maximum you have questions of 15 marks in mains examination and all that. So overall was done. And since then, if you look how many years has passed, almost 13 years has passed. So in 13 years, UPSC every day, every year is asking questions from geography. Syllabus is what? Same. Geomorphology, climatology, oceanography. Concepts they have, earlier they had lot of concept from where they can ask question because they have never asked question before. Now what is happening? Concepts are being repeated, right? Because if you have topic like suppose structure of atmosphere, they cannot make very new question from a structure of atmosphere. Already they have asked this question several times. So that is why now if you look in last 1 to 3 years, many questions which was earlier asked in prelims, they are being repeated exactly in the similar way. So if you are done with the last 10 year, 12 years of question paper, prelims question paper, mains question paper, there is high chance that 20-30% of questions will come almost same, or we can say related to the similar concept as such. Okay, so PYQs, what we can say, it has become very essential. Earlier there was no repetition of question and concept, that is why it was not such important. So this you should keep in mind. After completing the syllabus, definitely go through the PYQs, solve it. We'll discuss in the class also. Okay, after every topic, after every major chapter, what are the questions that are asked in last couple of years, 5 years, 7 years, we'll look at that. So it will give you idea that how you have to prepare about it, okay, which are the important part, which are the important facts. So that is the, so 60% syllabus understood, okay, that is what you can call as physical geography as such. Now the second important part of geography is geography of India. Say geography of India. So geography of India, we have to study several chapters. First, and which is the longest chapter we can say, is physiographical regions of India. Physiographical regions of India. Right, so this is the map of India, right? And what you have to study about? physiographical regions basically. That means it basically is referring to the diversity of India. You start your journey from the northernmost part of India, go to the southernmost part. What would you come across? Different type of landscape. Similarly, you move from west of India to east of India. What would experience? Different type of landscape. So overall, the entire Indian landmass is divided into 5 major physiographical regions, and each of those in detail we have to study about it. Yeah, so if you look how in geography we divide the Indian landmass. So first is the northern part from here, this entire region. This part. So this part is what we call as the first physiographical region, which is referred as Himalayan mountain system. In the first physiographical region of India, referred as Himalayan mountain system. Okay, so we simply call it as Himalaya, but later on we'll study in detail that it is not only Himalayas. Within Himalayan mountain system, lot of other mountains also you have, like Purvanchal hills, you have Trans Himalaya. Even Himalaya is divided into Great Himalaya, Middle Himalaya, Outer Himalayas and all that. Okay, Trans Himalaya also we have Karakoram range you would have studied about or heard about. Okay, so Karakoram, Ladakh, okay, Kailash, all these ranges that we have. So that is the first part we will be talking in the class. Second part is to the south of Himalayas. Start from here, like this, and up to here, and further this area. This is the second part or second physiographical region of India. And second physiographical region of India. If I ask you, what kind of region is it? What kind of feature would you see here? Mountains, south of mountain, what do we have? Plains. Okay, so what do we call this plain as? It is a plain, and this plain is called as Great Plains of North India. Okay, so the largest alluvial plain in the world actually. Okay, so Great Plains of North India. Okay, many times this is also referred as gift of Himalayas. Okay, many geographers call the plain as gift of Himalayas. Why? Because if Himalaya did not exist, plains would not have come into existence. The plains have formed due to the presence of Himalayas itself. That is why gift of Himalayas, right? Because plain is nothing but deposition of sediments. How sediments are being formed? Erosion. Where is erosion? Erosion is taking place in the Himalayas. So we have rivers flowing through Himalayas. What they are bringing? Sediments. And when the sediments are deposited here, what happens? Formation of plain. So understand, if no Himalayas, no sediment, no plain. That is why gift of Himalaya. What is the significance of plains for us, for people living in India? What is the most important contribution of plain? Agriculture. Okay, this is the most fertile region of India. Okay, so 70% the crop production of entire India, if you look, is going on where? In that strip, okay, of the landmass there. So all kind of crop, rice, wheat, pulses. Okay, you have this oil seeds, all kind of crops can be easily cultivated. So we'll talk about that. So plains of India. Then further south you come, this entire region we can show here like this. This. This is the third physiographical region of India. Kind of triangular structure you can see. So triangular structure extending all the way up to south. This also is clear from the map itself, is the largest region of India, largest physiographical region of India. And this is called as Peninsular Plateau. We have Peninsular Plateau. Peninsular plateau. So in bracket you can write largest and oldest, both largest and oldest region of India. Peninsular plateau is considered as largest and oldest region of India. And in the last, along the coast, like this, in the west and further along east. Yeah, this is the fourth region collectively from both sides. You can combine. This is called as coastal plain. This is also plain, but along the coast. So coastal plain of India. The fourth region is coastal plains of India. Okay, where does it start from? This is your Gujarat. Okay, so from Gujarat all the way up to Kanyakumari, and again from Kanyakumari you go up to Odisha. Odisha coast to Kanyakumari, Kanyakumari to Gujarat. This along the entire coastal areas. What kind of topography? What kind of landscape? Plains. So coastal plains. This is also important in similar way, because here also what we do? Cultivation, cropping, agriculture, and all. So that is the fourth part. Do we have any other part, or we are done? If you look at the map of India, do we have any other part? Islands, right? That is the fifth part. So we have how many group of island? Two group. One in the west. What is this island group called as? Lakshadweep. And then one island group you have in the east. That is in the Bay of Bengal. What do you call it as? Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So collectively both of them are referred as the fifth physiographical region of India. In geography referred as island group. Island groups of India. So that is the overall physiographical divisions of India into 5 regions: Himalayan mountain system, Great Plains, Peninsular Plateau, Coastal Plains, and Island group. Clear? Done? So that is the first part, which is also the longest chapter of entire Indian geography, but very important one, because from here mapping based question is asked by UPSC in very good number, we can say. Okay, they will not ask about facts in a statement form. They will ask question based on mapping. Okay, like for example, within mountains we have 5-6 mountain ranges. So they can give you a question that arrange these mountain ranges in correct sequence as you move from north to south, or from east to west and such. Okay, so we'll discuss that in class also, and we'll cover mapping in the same chapter as well. Coming to the second chapter here, this in Indian geography is the most important chapter if you look at the syllabus, the previous year questions, because in Indian geography majority of question in last years have been asked from which topic? River system. Okay, so very important. So river system of India. Second chapter is river system of India. So river system, we have to talk about two type of river system. We'll discuss later. In India broadly we classify river system into two categories: Himalayan river system and we have peninsular river system. A Himalayan and peninsular river system. What is the example of Himalayan river system? And why we are classifying it like this? Based on simple origin. Those rivers that originate from Himalayas, they make up part of HRS. Those rivers which originate from which region? You can imagine this is your peninsular plateau. So any river that is originating throughout this entire region will be part of peninsular. So if I ask Kaveri river system, which part? Which is part of peninsular river system? Godavari, part of peninsular. Krishna river, right? So this is peninsular. What is the example of Himalayan river systems? Ganga river. Okay, what else? Indus. What else? Brahmaputra. Okay, so all these are example of Himalayan. So we'll discuss in details about that. Total 8 rivers we have to study here. 8 river system we have to study here in detail. Also one thing, one term is river and the other term is river system. What is the difference? River versus river system. What is the difference? Right, when you talk about river, we are talking about what? A single stream of water that is flowing in a particular channel. When you talk about river system, what we are considering? All the tributaries that is joining it. Okay, like when it say Kaveri river, what I'm talking about? Only the stream of water flowing through the Kaveri channel. When I say Kaveri river system, what I mean? All the rivers that join it. So Lakshman Tirth, Kabani, okay, Bhavani, Noyal, Amravati, right? From the other side you have Shimsa, Arkavati, right? So all this collectively will make up what? Kaveri river system. Similarly, we say Ganga. When I say Ganga river, we are talking about only single stream of water flowing in the Ganga channel. But I say Ganga river system. Will Yamuna be part of it or not? Yes, because Yamuna is the tributary of Ganga, right? So Ghagra, Gandak, Kosi, right? All these rivers will be part of river systems. That's the difference. River means single stream. System means combination of all these streams making the system, network of channels. So very, very important. You can actually add this note here, most important, and for which examination perspective? Also for prelims. So Indian geography, most important chapter is river system and especially relevant for which phase of examination? Prelims examination. Highest number of questions from Indian geography has been asked from this chapter. Third you have is the climate of India. We just discussed. So application of same concept, climate. So world climate we will cover in the climatology. India's climate we have to cover in the Indian geography. Climate of India, which is broadly defined as tropical monsoon climate. And this is what our discussion will be revolving around. Okay, the description about the term tropical and monsoon. So in detail we have to cover it. Tropical monsoon climate. Fourth, if you look here, the climate of India, tropical monsoon climate. Fourth is natural vegetation, also referred as forests of India. Natural vegetation or forests of India. Okay, now forest in India is overall classified into 5 major types, and that is what we'll be covering here. 5 major types of forests. Because forest basically is what? Made up of trees and plants, and trees and plants depend on climate. So if you have different type of temperature, different type of rainfall, what will happen? The vegetation will change. So in desert area of Rajasthan, you will find different kind of plant. In the western Ghat where you have heavy rainfall, you will find different type of plant. In the upper part of Himalayas where temperature is what? Very, very low, you will find different kind of plant. So whenever temperature changes, whenever rainfall means water availability changes, what will change? Type of forest. So overall, if you look at the climate of India, 5 major type of forest we have to cover here. Currently, if you look, they are covering roughly how much percentage of India's area? Forest. You can say, as per the recent estimate, forest cover 25%, roughly 25% of India's area. The forests cover 25% of India's area. What is the total area of India? Anyone? What is the total area of India if you calculate? 3.2 what? Million square kilometer. This is the total. 3.2 million square kilometers. So 25% of this is under forest cover, forest area. So we'll talk about this. What is the position of India in the world from area's perspective? What rank India has? 7th. Okay, India is 7th largest country in the world. Okay, from area perspective. That also we can write in brackets. 7th largest in the world. Which is the largest country in the world? Russia. Right. Population wise, which country has highest population today in the world? India or China? China. India. India has surpassed China in 2023. Okay, so for last 2 years, India has been the most populous nation in the world. Okay, today India's population is higher than China. Okay, so this is update you should be aware about. 5th is soil group of India. Soil group. And again, in India, total 8 types of soil. We divide it into we classify Indian soil into 8 major types. So all these 8 major types we have to study in the soil group of India as such. So these are the 5 chapters which are part of what you can call as geography of India: physiographical region, river system, climate, forest and soil. So if you are done with this, it means you have a very good understanding of entire India as such. Okay, so mapping also will be able to say, okay, where which part is there, which soil is there, which forest is there. Anyone can tell you this part, this state. Okay, you will be able to say everything. What kind of landscape you will see, what rivers are flowing there, what kind of climate you have there, what kind of forest and trees, plants you'll find there, and what kind of soil. And if you are aware about soil, that means you are aware about cropping, because a particular crop grows in a particular type of soil. So you can say that, okay, Karnataka, if I say you that you have laterite soil or you have red soil, you should be able to say that. It means even if you have never been to Karnataka, for example, okay, you're living some other part of India, but if I give you information that in Karnataka we have laterite soil, red soil, what you should be able to say? That means there must be these crops grown there or cultivated there. And that is how the significance of geography, that is where the significance of geography lies in the administrative perspective you talk about. Because you are giving examination for becoming what? Officer. Why you need to study about geography of India? Because you are involved in the planning process. If you are not aware about crop, economy, soil, forest, vegetation, can you be a good planner? No. Okay, you will not have the understanding what to do. Okay, what kind of changes you have to make. Like if talk about you are posted in water resources ministry, right? Water resources ministry, you have to make planning related to the water uses, water policies, okay, schemes and all that. Now you cannot make the same scheme for the northern India and the southern India. Why? Because northern India you have different type of water availability. You have very large volume of groundwater. In southern India, groundwater is almost non-existent. So if you make a similar kind of plan and policy, will it work? No. That is where the role of geography becomes critical. It gives you idea, information about that where which plan should be implemented, executed, which policy will fit which region of India and so. So we'll talk about that later also in detail in the classes. So Indian geography collectively, if you look, they make up roughly what percentage of the entire syllabus? 30. So 60% is physical geography. 30% syllabus we can say is from Indian geography as such. How much is remaining? 10%. Okay. So this remaining 10% is divided into 2 other branches of geography, which we have to have brief idea about. The first is you can call as economic geography. And second is human geography. Economic geography and human geography. So 3 chapters in economic geography, 3 chapters, small chapters in human geography we have to cover. The first chapter broadly we can say is referred as resources and their distribution. Resources and their distribution. Right. So what is resource? What you can refer as resource, or what can be the example of resource if I ask? Iron ore, right? Mineral example, iron ore is type of minerals. So any mineral is what? Type of resource. But what is resource? If you have to explain it or define it, when can anything be referred as resource? Money value. Money value means economic value, we can say, right? Money value better than can say economic value. What else? It should be useful for human purposes as such. Okay, so it has certain economic value and it is useful for certain human purposes, activities and all that. Then we can call it as what? Resources. Okay, so we can have resources that is given to us by nature. What do we call it as? Natural resources, and that is what we have to discuss basically in this part of syllabus, largely natural resources. What can be example of resource? Mineral we have discussed. So all minerals are what? Mineral resources, iron ore, coal, bauxite, copper, tin, lead, whatever we have. What other things? Energy resources, right? What we are getting energy from? Coal, oil, natural gas. What else? Renewable sources, solar energy, wind energy, tidal energy, geothermal energy and all that. All of these are example of what? Resources. So in this chapter, we have to look at the important resources, largely minerals are what we have to cover here, and how they are or where are they distributed, not only within India, but also at the global scale. Okay, so we have to look at the continental scale. Mineral that you will find in the North America, major minerals in South America, right? In Africa, Eurasia, India and all that. So that is what we will be covering here. So spatially, here you can write spatially with reference to minerals. In this chapter we have to cover spatially with reference to minerals. Now if you are given a resource, like suppose you have excavated a particular area and what you found there? Iron ore. Nearby also what you found? Coal. Can you use directly this iron ore for your own consumption? Can ore be directly used by humans? No, it has to be transformed into the usable form as such. And where such transformation occurs? Industries, right? What do you do in industries? You set up, for example, steel industry you have. What are you doing in a steel industry? You're taking up iron ore, you're taking up coal, you're taking up limestone also. And there, through a certain process, you're converting it into what? Steel. Once you make a steel they can use for making up lot of different stuff. Okay, simple as you can make what? Knife from the steel, needle from the steel. Okay, and complicated you can make large machineries from the steel also. So the second chapter builds upon the resources. Once you understand the resources, you also need to be aware about what? Industries. But what you have to study here? Industries. So industries we have to study about what we call as location factors. So industries location factors. Location factor means, if I say that in the Jamshedpur, for example, okay, you have city, you have large number of steel industries. Okay, so it's not that because someone wanted to establish industry in Jamshedpur because they have some this association in Jamshedpur, then only they have started. There must be some economic factors that has contributed to development of what? Steel industry in Jamshedpur as such. Similarly, we talk about the Mumbai region, Mumbai and Gujarat area. You have large number of petroleum refinery, petrochemical industries. So why is it so? There must be some reasons behind it. So when you are setting up any industry, you do not randomly set up anywhere where you find space. You have to take into account what? Several factors. Right? What you have why you have taken into account factors before setting up industry? Because what is the purpose of opening industry? If suppose a person or a company, private company, let us assume, want to set up industry anywhere, what are the things they have to keep in mind? Or what is their main motive, if I ask in this manner? What is the main motive of setting up industry? Why Reliance want to increase its expands its plans or set up more and more industries? Consumption, why they will consume? What is the main purpose? Why anyone will start business? Profit, we can say. The main motive or the most important motive is profit. No matter how big industry it is or what kind of complications and complex machinery you have put, if at the end you find that you are not earning profit, rather you are burning money from your own investment, will you run that industry? No. After some time, what will you have to do? Shut it down. So the profitability of industry to a large extent depend on what? Location factors. So, like again, if you draw India, okay, to understand it better, we know that in this part, eastern part of India, it is referred as Chota Nagpur Plateau. We'll discuss that. For now, you can imagine. Here, what you find? You find iron ore. In the same area, what you find? You find coal. In same area, what you find? You find limestone. Right? All of these we have just discussed is raw material for which industry? Steel industry. Right? These are not available in the Rajasthan, for example, okay, or Madhya Pradesh, for example. So two fronts are there. One front set up industry or steel plant in Chota Nagpur, eastern part. One front set up the same steel industry in Madhya Pradesh. Who will be profitable? A or B? Obviously B, because B has advantage. Why? Because all the raw material is available nearby. For bringing it all to the industry, the transportation cost will be very, very less. Imagine this industry which is here, the friend A has set it up here. He need to bring iron ore from here, coal from here, limestone from here. So obviously what will happen? Profit will be very, very less or even negative, because transportation cost is very, very high here. So when you take into account these factors, what do you call it as a location factors? That means in simple term, we can say location factors are factors that are taken into consideration before setting up an industry to ensure its viability and profitability as such. Will that be correct or not? Right. So example is what? Raw material is one location factor. Industries also need power. If you open industry in area where there is no power supply, what will happen? You will not be able to make money. If you open industry in area where there is no roads, can you make money? No, because what you need? Continuously you need to transport raw material and again send back the finished goods, finished product and all that. So these factors are what we call as location factors, and how these factors have influenced industrial development both in India and the major industrial regions across the world. That is what we have to cover in this particular chapter. Yeah. So very, very important and very interesting chapter also, I think, out of the entire economic geography. And third, simply based on that, we have to study about industrial regions of India and world both. Industrial regions of India and the world. Industrial regions means those areas where you have a large number of different types of industry concentrated in a certain pocket itself as such. Okay, so that is what we call as industrial region. Again, India also, if I ask you, are industries uniformly distributed or non-uniformly distributed? Non-uniformly. You have certain areas where you have 80-90% of India's industry. Area wise, if you look, 30% of India's area support 80% of its industry. Remaining 70% has only 20%. Okay, so that we have to study here why and how. And last chapter or topic is human geography. And this is the smallest topic of the entire geography out of the four. So here also we have to study about population. So three things we can highlight. Population theories we have talked about. Several geographers have given their theory that how and why population changes. Theories of population change and trends we have to cover in India, how population have changed in the last 100 years. And important census is conducted held every 10 years. Okay, generally this year, this time we have big gap because last census was held in 2011. So officially it should have commenced in 2021, but because of COVID and some other problems, we have delayed it and now it is going on. Okay, so maybe next year or next to next year, new data will come. So till now, till new data come, we have to look at the older data. So important facts from census we have to prepare here, yeah, like gender ratio, literacy rate, right, distribution of population, all that. So basically it is a factual type of topic, no concept as such. Second is migration. Second important chapter of human geography is migration. Migration means movement of people from generally their place of residence to some other place. Okay, and why are people moving? So one of the reasons we can say, not only reason. So migration, three things we have to cover here. Migration, that means trends and patterns. Trends and patterns. Again, theories. Many geographers explain why and how migration occurs. Theories of migration. Right, then causes and consequences of migration. Causes and consequences. The trends or patterns, theories, causes and consequences of migration, and consequences of migration. And current status of migration. Current status of migration. And what is going on at present as such. Okay, so current affair related, like for example, what we can say today. If you look at 1990s, 2000, 2010s, these decades were when it was very easier or relatively easier, we can say, for any high skilled Indian professional to move where? Western countries, US, UK, Canada, European countries and all that. Compared to that, if you look at present situation, it is what? Relatively difficult. Why? Because domestic situation, political situation in those countries have changed. More anti-immigrant waves you are seeing here, especially the current administration of USA, they have also taken anti-migration stance and all that. Okay, so you will see that many cases are being reported where a person who was on valid H1B visa in US, they came to India and their visa was revoked. Okay, so they had job but now they are stranded here. Okay, so stuck here. These are the status we have to study both within India also and outside of India also. So trends and patterns, theories of migration, causes and consequences, and current status of migration. So these are important points. When we talk about migration, both internal migration as well as international migration will be covered, because internally also people are moving from one state to other state, one district, one city to other city and all that, across the border as well. So migration. And last chapter here in this we have is human development, the concept of human development. Human development, this is largely we have to study from the report that is released every 2 years by United Nations, every year actually by United Nations, called as Human Development Report. There they measure the progress of countries on the basis of 3 parameters. The literacy rate, that means education they are trying to measure. Second is the health status, and third is the per capita income, that means financial or economic status. So based on this, development is measured. So we will talk about that also in detail. But overall, these are the 3 chapters part of human geography. Okay, population, migration, human development. So collectively, economic geography and human geography, look, what do we have? Relatively lesser syllabus. Okay, so 10-15% if you imagine is what they are making the entire part of syllabus as. Most important is what? Physical geography. Okay, geomorphology, oceanography, climatology. Second most important is geography of India. Okay, 5 chapters we have discussed there. And then what we have? Economic and human geography. So collectively this all make up your entire syllabus of geography as such. One small topic, okay, that will be covering, because this is more related to science and tech, but also in geography, brief idea need to have about that we can call as what? Basics of astronomy. So this also we can add here. Okay, a small chapter that is considered in geography or studied in geography. But if you look, actually, what is geography? Study of Earth, description of Earth, we have defined it. Astronomy is what we are going beyond Earth. Okay, so it is what? Study of solar system, universe, and all that. But we have to study about them briefly. Okay, so example here we'll talk about galaxies, solar system, sun, yeah, moon, sun, moon. So these four things, and around them several concepts will be covering. Galaxies, solar system, okay, sun, moon, origin of universe also we can write. Briefly, we'll discuss around the origin of universe. Right. So that will be entire syllabus of geography as such. Any question? Anyone? Any doubt? You want to ask something? Done? Right. So we'll end the session. Okay, I think you got a good idea about what you have to cover, what you have to study, okay, what is the importance of different part and subject matter. Okay, and on the same sequence, first when you start class, we'll starting with this, okay, and then we'll start the physical geography, geomorphology, same way how we have discussed, okay, and the entire topic we'll be covering out here. Okay, atlas should be important part of your geography preparation, okay, journey you talk about. So every time when you are coming to classes or whenever you are revising by yourself, studying by yourself geography, keep atlas always with yourself, because UPSC these days is giving lot of weightage or we can say focus to the atlas map based question, both from the static perspective as well as from current affairs perspective. So if any place is a news continuously, it is being seen in the newspaper. You have to prepare it from geography perspective also. Right? So we will understand this more better as we progress in the class. Okay, so we'll end the session. Thank you.